The humans built a meeting place in space. It was a simple structure, just a large room with air and gravity, positioned halfway between the human fleet and the conquered ships. Getting the conquered to agree to this meeting had taken all of Admiral Ellis's diplomatic skills. They're only agreeing because they're curious, Ellis told Wright as they prepared. They've never heard a Kryvax speak before. They probably think it's a trick. Wright nodded. But it's a chance. That's all we need. 23 alien species sent representatives to the meeting. Some came from the 5 Concorde ships that had first surrounded the horizon. Others arrived later, rushing to witness this historic event. No humans had ever seen so many different alien species in one place. Some looked almost human with 2 arms, 2 legs, and a head. Others were completely different. Floating gas clouds contained in special suits, insect-like. Beings with multiple limbs, creatures that seemed to be made of living crystal. All of them stared with various eyes, sensors, or other organs as Zexatrol entered the room with Wright at his side. The Kryvax moved slowly, trying to appear as non-threatening as possible. Still, many of the aliens stepped back. Some reached for weapons. The tension in the room was thick enough to cut with a knife. A tall, blue-skinned alien stepped forward, Delegate Zorvan, the one who had first contacted the horizon. "State your purpose," he said coldly. Wright was about to speak, but Zexatrol put a hand on his shoulder. "I will speak," the Kryvax said. His voice was calm but carried throughout the room. "I am Zexatrol of the Kryvax," he began. "For 10,000 years you have hunted my kind. You have killed us wherever you found us. You have denied us the right to speak, to explain, to change." A ripple of angry murmurs spread through the crowd. A squat, gray-skinned alien with 4 arms shouted, "Your kind has no rights. You are killers, not people." "Yes," Zexatrol agreed, surprising everyone. "We have killed. We have destroyed. I do not deny the crimes of my ancestors." The room grew, quiet, the aliens not expecting this admission. "But we did not choose to be what we are," Zexatrol continued. "We were made as weapons by those you call the ancients. They shaped our bodies for hunting. They programmed our minds for killing. They built into us a hunger that drives us to seek out intelligent prey." Zexatrol spread his arms, revealing his full height and powerful build. "Look at me. Look at these claws, these teeth. I did not choose them. I did not choose the hunger that burns inside me, demanding to be fed with the flesh of thinking beings." The aliens were listening now, though their postures still showed fear and distrust. "For generations after our creators died, we were little more than animals, following our instincts. Yes, we destroyed worlds. Yes, we killed without mercy. But over time we changed, our minds grew. We began to question, to think, to regret." Zexatrol turned slowly, making eye contact with as many of the aliens as possible. "Today there are thousands of us who seek another way, who fight against our nature, who wish to live in peace." "Impossible," shouted another alien, a being with green skin and a head that split into 3 parts. "Your kind cannot change its nature. You were made to kill." "Can a weapon not be turned into a tool?" Zexatrol asked. "Can a predator not choose to overcome its instincts? All of you," he gestured around the room, "all of your species have evolved from predators. All of you have ancestors who killed to live. Yet you have chosen civilization over violence." Wright stepped forward then. "When we found Zexatrol, he was injured and alone. We could have left him to die. We could have killed him. Instead, we helped him. And in the weeks since then, he has shown nothing but gratitude and friendship." "Humans are young and foolish," said Delegate Zorvan. "They do not know the threat you pose." "Perhaps," Wright admitted. "Or perhaps we see things differently because we haven't learned all your prejudices yet. Where you saw a monster, we saw someone in need. Where you saw only a threat, we found a friend." An older alien with golden skin and 6 eyes moved closer. "You truly believe this Kryvax can be trusted?" "I'd trust him with my life," Wright said without hesitation. "You may be doing exactly that," the golden alien replied. Admiral Ellis joined the conversation. "We understand your concerns. The Kryvax have a violent history. But Zextral has told us that his kind needs specific chemicals found in sentient beings to survive. Our scientists have begun creating synthetic versions of these chemicals. Zextral has been consuming them for weeks now with no problems. This caused a stir among the aliens. A thin, tall being with silver skin asked, "Is this true, Krivax? You can survive without hunting?" "It is not as satisfying," Zextral admitted. "The hunger is still there. But yes, it keeps me alive and healthy." "And what do you propose?" asked Delegate Zorvan. "That we simply forgive thousands of years of destruction? That we welcome the Krivax into galactic society?" "No," said Zextral. "I ask only for a chance. A place where those like me, those who want to change, can live in peace. A place to prove that we are more than weapons. That we can create instead of destroy." For the next 6 hours, the debate continued. Some delegates stormed out, unwilling to even consider the idea of peaceful Krivax. Others stayed, asking hard questions, listening to Zextral's answers. Wright and Ellis supported him, offering human perspectives and scientific data. In the end, no definite agreement was reached. The Concord was too large, with too many different opinions, to make a quick decision on such a controversial issue. But a small victory was won. The Concord agreed to let the humans take responsibility for Zextral and any other Krivax who sought a new path. They provided coordinates for an uninhabited solar system far from major trade routes, where the reformed Krivax could begin building a new society. "You will be watched," Delegate Zorvan warned as the meeting ended. "At the first sign of returning to your old ways, the Concord will act." "We understand," Admiral Ellis said, "and we accept that responsibility." As they left the meeting, Wright walked beside Zextral. "Well, it's not perfect, but it's a start." "More than I ever hoped for," Zextral replied. "For the first time, they listened. They did not shoot first. That alone is a miracle." In the months that followed, word spread throughout the galaxy about the strange humans who had befriended a Krivax. Most species thought the humans were naive or foolish. Others watched with cautious interest. A few, mostly species who had faced their own prejudice from the larger galactic community, offered support. Slowly, other Krivax began to appear. They came in small ships, alone or in pairs, drawn by the rumor of a place where they could be more than monsters. Wright and a team of human scientists worked with them, developing better synthetic nutrients, learning about Krivax culture and biology, helping them build a society based on creation rather than destruction. 6 months after the first meeting with Zextral, the USS Horizon prepared to return to Earth. Wright stood with his alien friend in the observation deck, watching the stars. "I've been thinking about what you said when we first met," Wright said, "about how no one had ever shown your kind mercy before." "It changed everything," Zextral replied. "One small act of kindness from you has given my people a future." Wright smiled. "My people have a saying. Sometimes the biggest risk is never taking one at all." Zextral's amber eyes studied Wright with what the human had learned to recognize as affection. "And my people will now have a saying of our own. When the galaxy turned away, humanity reached out its hand." As Wright prepared to board his ship, Zextral stopped him with a gentle touch on his shoulder. "You once explained to me what a friend is," the Krivax said. "Now I understand. Thank you, my friend." Wright clasped the alien's clawed hand in his own. Two beings from different worlds, made of different stuff with different histories, yet connected by something stronger than their differences. As the Horizon broke orbit and set course for Earth, news arrived that the first human Krivax cultural exchange program had opened for applications. Brave humans volunteering to live among the reformed predators to teach and learn. Many thought it was madness. Some called it humanity's greatest achievement in space. Only time would tell which view was right. But one thing was certain. The universe would never be the same again. Because when faced with the deadliest predator in the galaxy, one human had chosen kindness over fear. And that simple choice had changed the course of history for two species, and perhaps many more. End of story. 3 Earth months had passed since the humiliating meeting with the Galactic Council. The starship Defiant remained stationed near Proxima Station, a massive space structure that served as the Council's diplomatic outpost at the edge of human space. The station looked like a giant metal flower with 8 petals extending from a central hub. Each petal housed representatives from different alien species. Captain Susan Miller sat in her small office aboard the Defiant, staring at the station through her viewport. The Council still hadn't made a decision about Earth's application. They kept asking for more information, more demonstrations, more proof that humans deserved a place at the galactic table. Susan was beginning to think they were just stalling. She turned back to her computer screen, which displayed technical information about Viridian shield technology. During these 3 months, Susan had made it her mission to learn everything she could about the Council species and their technology. "Know your potential enemies," her father had always said. "Captain Miller, please report to communications immediately," announced the ship's AI through the room's speakers. The voice was female and calm, but something in its tone made Susan sit up straight. "On my way," she replied, already moving toward the door. The hallways of the Defiant were narrow but well lit. Crew members stepped aside and nodded respectfully as Susan passed. Everyone on board knew how important their mission was. The Defiant wasn't just a ship. It was Earth's first real chance to join the wider galactic community. When Susan entered the communications room, she found Communications Officer Diane Allen at her station. Diane was one of the youngest officers on the ship, but also one of the best. Her fingers moved quickly over the control panel, adjusting signals and frequencies with practiced ease. "What's happening, Officer Allen?" Susan asked. Diane turned, her expression serious. "Captain, we're receiving a distress signal from Proxima Station. It's on all emergency channels." "Put it through," Susan ordered. The main screen lit up with the face of a Viridian. 4 eyes, gray skin, and a wide, flat nose. Susan recognized Ambassador Zixtal, the same alien who had laughed at Earth's weapons. "This is Ambassador Zixtal of the Galactic Council," he said, his voice tight with stress. "We have detected a Drachnoid war fleet approaching Proxima Station. 7 warships heavily armed. All civilian and non-combat vessels must evacuate immediately. Council defense forces have been alerted but will not arrive for at least 3 standard days." The message repeated once before ending. "Drachnoids," Susan said, frowning. "The pirates Grazak mentioned during our meeting." "Yes, Captain," Diane confirmed. "From what we've learned, they're raiders who target isolated outposts and stations. They take resources, technology, and sometimes people. They're known for their advanced weapons and complete lack of mercy." "And the Council's defense fleet is 3 days away," Susan added. She thought for a moment. "Has the station begun evacuation?" Diane checked her screens. "Yes, Captain. I can see small ships leaving already. But there are thousands of people on that station. It will take time to get everyone out." Susan's communication device buzzed against her wrist. She looked down and saw a message from Admiral John Murphy. "Eyes only. This is the opportunity we've been waiting for. The Defiant is cleared to engage using Protocol Omega. Show them what humanity can do." Susan read the message twice. Protocol. Omega meant she was authorized to use the Raven system, Earth's most secret weapon, the one they hadn't revealed to the Council. "Captain?" Diane was watching her, waiting for orders. "Send a message to all department heads," Susan said. "Emergency meeting in the command center in 5 minutes." Minutes later, Susan stood before her senior officers in the ship's command center. Lieutenant Frank Carter was there, along with Chief Engineer Lisa Ward, Medical Officer Paul Bennett, and First Officer Greg Patterson. Susan quickly explained the situation. "The Drachnoids will reach Proxima Station in approximately 4 hours, she concluded. "By then, most of the civilian ships will be gone, but the station itself will be defenseless." "What are our orders, Captain?" Greg asked. He was older than Susan by 10 years, with gray starting to show in his dark hair. "Admiral Murphy has authorized the use of Protocol Omega," Susan replied. A tense silence filled the room. Everyone present knew what that meant. Frank was the first to speak. With all due respect, Captain, the Council representatives made it very clear that our weapons are no match for advanced threats like the Drachnoids. That's what they think, Susan replied with a small smile. But we know better, don't we? Lieutenant? Frank matched her smile with one of his own. Yes, Captain, we certainly do. I don't understand, Lisa said, frowning. Are we really going to fight 7 Drachnoid warships? Our hull won't survive a direct hit from their plasma cannons. They have to hit us first, Frank pointed out. Susan nodded. I know this is risky. The Raven system has never been tested in actual combat, but this is why we're out here, to prove that humanity belongs among the stars. She looked at each officer in turn. If anyone has serious objections, speak now. No one said a word. Very well, Susan said. Mr. Patterson, set course to intercept the Drachnoid fleet before they reach the station. Mr. Carter, prepare the Raven system for combat. Dr. Bennett, prepare sickbay for possible casualties. Chief Ward, I want maximum power to shields and engines. As her officers moved to carry out their orders, Susan felt a mix of fear and excitement. This would either be the moment humans proved their worth to the galaxy, or a very short and final chapter in Earth's space exploration. On the bridge, Susan watched through the main viewport as the Defiant moved away from Proxima Station. Behind them, dozens of small ships were fleeing in all directions, carrying Council representatives and station staff to safety. Drachnoid fleet detected, reported the sensor officer. 7 ships approaching at high speed, weapon systems active. On screen, Susan ordered. The viewport display changed to show 7 black arrow-shaped ships moving in perfect formation. They were much larger than the Defiant, with glowing red lines running along their hulls. They've seen us, Greg reported from his station. They're adjusting course to intercept. Susan's communication device buzzed again. It was a message from Proxima Station. Human vessel, this is Ambassador Zixtal. Your courage is noted but misguided. The Drachnoid vessels outclass your technology. By several orders of magnitude. Please retreat immediately. Susan didn't bother to reply. Instead, she said, Mr. Carter, is the Raven system ready? Frank's fingers moved quickly over his console. Raven system online, Captain. Targeting solutions acquired for all 7 Drachnoid vessels. On the viewport screen, the Drachnoid ships continued to approach. They were close enough now that Susan could see the details of their design, the weapon ports along their sides, the massive engines propelling them forward. They're charging weapons, Greg reported. His voice was calm, but Susan could see the tension in his shoulders. Susan settled into her captain's chair, her eyes fixed on the approaching enemy. All hands, battle stations. This is not a drill. Throughout the ship, crew members moved to their assigned positions. Some were scared, others excited. None of them knew exactly what the Raven system could do, but they trusted their captain. Drachnoid lead ship is in optimal firing range, Frank reported. Susan took a deep breath. The next few minutes would change everything. Target the lead. Ship, Mr. Carter, she ordered. Prepare to show the galaxy what humans can really do. On the bridge of the Defiant, time seemed to slow down. Captain Susan Miller felt the weight of the moment. Everything in her career, everything in humanity's short history of space travel, had led to this point. Captain, the lead Drachnoid. Ship is charging its main weapon, reported Greg Patterson from his station. The first officer's voice was steady, but Susan could see beads of sweat on his forehead. Distance to target? Susan asked. 10,000 kilometers and closing, replied the helmsman. They'll be in their optimal firing range in 30 seconds. Susan nodded. Mr. Carter, status of the Raven system? Lieutenant Frank Carter's fingers moved quickly over his console. Raven system is at full power, Captain. Targeting solution. Locked on the lead Drachnoid vessel. What are they waiting for? Greg whispered, looking at the enemy ships on the main screen. They should have fired by now. Susan understood the Drachnoid's hesitation. They're confused. They expected us to run, not challenge them. They're probably trying to figure out if we have some kind of death wish. A few nervous laughs broke the tension on the bridge. "We're receiving a transmission from the Dracnoid lead ship," announced Diane Allen from the communications station. Susan raised an eyebrow. "That's unusual. Put it through." The main screen changed to show the inside of the Dracnoid vessel. Susan had never seen a Dracnoid before, and the sight made her skin crawl. The alien had gray, leathery skin stretched over a skull-like face with no visible nose. Its eyes were large and completely black. When it opened its mouth to speak, Susan saw rows of small pointed teeth. "Human vessel," the Dracnoid said in a raspy voice. "Your actions are unexpected. Do you understand the situation you are in?" Susan stood up from her chair. "This is Captain Susan Miller of the Earth Alliance Starship Defiant. We understand perfectly. You're planning to attack Proxima Station." The Dracnoid made a sound that might have been laughter. "Then you know you cannot stop us. Your weapons are primitive. Your shields are weak. Leave now, and we might let you live." Susan glanced at Frank, who nodded slightly. The Raven system was ready. "I have a better idea," Susan replied. "You leave, and we'll let you live." The Dracnoid's black eyes seemed to widen. "You dare to threaten the Dracnoid clan? Your arrogance will be your end." The screen went black as the transmission ended. "They've cut communication," Diane reported. "All 7 ships are powering up weapons." "They're firing," Greg shouted. Susan didn't hesitate. "Mr. Carter, activate the Raven system. Target the lead ship." "Raven system active, Captain," Frank replied, his voice calm despite the danger. "Targeting the lead Dracnoid vessel." The bridge crew held their breath. On the main screen, they could see energy building around the front of the lead Dracnoid ship. In seconds, that energy would be released in a destructive beam aimed right at them. "Fire," Susan ordered. Frank pressed a button on his console. There was no dramatic flash, no loud noise, no visible beam shooting out from the Defiant. In fact, nothing seemed to happen at all. The ship didn't shake. No energy readings spiked. It was as if they hadn't fired anything. For a moment, the bridge crew looked confused. Even Susan felt a moment of doubt. Had the Raven system failed? Then, something amazing happened on the main screen. The lead Dracnoid ship, which had been about to fire its weapon, suddenly changed. It didn't explode. It didn't break apart violently. Instead, it seemed to simply fall apart like a sandcastle when the tide comes in. Every piece of the massive warship separated from every other piece at exactly the same moment. Where there had been a threatening alien vessel, there was now just a slowly expanding cloud of components. No one on the bridge spoke. It was hard to process what they had just seen. What just happened?" asked a young ensign at the rear of the bridge. Frank smiled. "The Raven system happened. It worked exactly as designed. On Proxima Station, the remaining council representatives watched in stunned silence. The observation deck was crowded with aliens who hadn't managed to evacuate yet. They had gathered to witness what they thought would be the quick destruction of a foolish human ship. Instead, they saw something impossible. "What did they do?" whispered Chairperson Elovir, her skin barely glowing now. "How did they do that?" Ambassador Zixtal's 4 eyes were opened as wide as they could go. They didn't use an energy weapon. There was no explosion. The ship just came apart. On the Defiance bridge, Susan was already giving new orders. "Mr. Carter, target the second Dracnoid vessel. Fire when ready." "Second target locked," Frank replied. "Firing Raven system." Again, there was no visible sign that the Defiant had fired a weapon. But the results were clear. The second Dracnoid ship suffered the same fate as the first, coming apart in a perfect, silent disassembly. The remaining 5 Dracnoid ships suddenly changed course. Instead of continuing toward Proxima Station, they were now moving away at their highest speed. "They're running," Greg said with a touch of disbelief in his voice. Susan nodded. "As they should. Mr. Carter, target the third ship." Frank looked up from his console. "Captain, they're retreating. Is it necessary to—" "The Dracnoids are pirates and killers, Lieutenant," Susan interrupted. "They've destroyed countless ships and stations. How many innocent lives might we save by making sure these ones never attack anyone again? Frank nodded. Understood, Captain. Targeting third vessel. 2 more Dracnoid ships came apart under the Raven system's strange power, before the remaining 3 managed to jump to faster-than-light speed, escaping into the darkness of space. The bridge crew of the Defiant looked at each other in amazement. They had just defeated a force that the entire Galactic Council feared. 4 enemy warships destroyed, and the Defiant hadn't taken even a scratch. Captain, Diane called from her station. We're receiving multiple hails from Proxima Station. Every council representative still on board wants to speak with you. Susan couldn't help but smile. I bet they do. Tell them we'll be happy to discuss what happened once we've confirmed the station is secure. As the Defiant moved toward Proxima Station, Susan's communication device buzzed with a message from Admiral Murphy. Well done, Captain. Phase 1 complete. Prepare for Phase 2. Susan knew what that meant. The demonstration of human power had gone perfectly. Now came the diplomatic part, explaining to the Galactic Council exactly what the Raven system was, while still keeping its most important secrets. On Proxima Station, the Council representatives were in chaos. Some were still staring out the observation windows, trying to understand what they had seen. Others were sending urgent messages to their home worlds, and all of them were asking the same questions. How did the humans do that? What kind of weapon could make a ship come apart without an explosion? And most importantly, what did this mean for the balance of power in the galaxy? Ambassador Zixtal turned to Chairperson Elovir. We mocked them, he said quietly. We laughed at their primitive weapons. Elovir nodded, the patterns of light under her skin moving in what looked like agitation. It seems we have much to learn about these humans. As the Defiant docked with Proxima Station, Susan prepared to meet with the Council representatives. She knew they would have many questions. She would answer some of them truthfully, others she would avoid. The Raven system was humanity's greatest advantage, and they couldn't reveal all its secrets. Not yet. Ready, Lieutenant? She asked Frank. As they prepared to leave the ship, Frank nodded, straightening his uniform. Ready, Captain, let's go make history again. 1 week after the battle with the Dracnoid ships, Captain Susan Miller and Lieutenant Frank Carter walked through the corridors of Proxima Station. The atmosphere was very different now. Alien representatives who had once looked at them with amusement or pity now moved aside respectfully as they passed. Some even bowed their heads slightly, a gesture Susan had only seen used for high-ranking council members before. This is strange, Frank whispered as they approached the council chamber. I feel like we became celebrities overnight. Susan nodded. That tends to happen when you destroy 4 warships without breaking a sweat. News of the battle had spread quickly through the galaxy. Ships arriving at Proxima Station carried representatives from worlds far beyond Council space, all eager to meet the humans who had defeated the feared Dracnoid raiders with a mysterious new weapon. Some came offering trade deals. Others wanted military alliances. A few simply wanted to see these strange humans with their own eyes, or whatever they used for seeing. The doors to the council chamber slid open. Inside, the room was packed with even more aliens than during their first visit. But unlike last time, there was no laughter, no whispers of mockery. Instead, a respectful hush fell as Susan and Frank walked to the center of the room. The 7 council members sat in their elevated seats looking down at the 2 humans. Chairperson Elovir's skin was glowing brightly, her patterns moving faster than normal, a sign of excitement Susan had learned. Captain Susan Miller and Lieutenant Frank Carter of Earth, announced the mechanical voice. Representatives of the United Earth Alliance. Chairperson Elovir leaned forward. Welcome back to the Galactic Council, humans. We are pleased you accepted our invitation. Susan and Frank bowed, just as they had done the first time. But this time, to Susan's surprise, the council members bowed back. The council formally withdraws its previous assessment of human defensive capabilities, Elovir continued. We recognize that our evaluation was incomplete. That was as close to an apology as the council ever gave, Susan knew. She nodded graciously. The United Earth Alliance appreciates the Council's reconsideration. Ambassador Zixtal spoke next, his 4 eyes blinking rapidly, a sign of nervousness in his species. The Council requests information about the weapon you used against the EO. Drachnoid ships. Our scientists have reviewed the sensor data, but we cannot understand how it functions. Susan and Frank exchanged a look. This was the moment they had prepared for. How much to reveal, how much to keep secret. These were delicate calculations in galactic diplomacy. The weapon is called the Raven system, Susan began. Its development was classified until now. The Council members leaned forward, their interest obvious. Raven stands for Relativistic Accelerated Vector Energy Network, Frank explained. It's not a traditional weapon in the sense you might understand. Please elaborate, requested Grazak, the Rigelian with the clicking exoskeleton who had mocked their technology before. Susan took a deep breath. While most species in the galaxy focused on developing more powerful energy weapons, bigger, explosions, stronger lasers, humanity took a different approach. We studied the fundamental forces that hold matter together. Frank continued, the Raven system doesn't destroy targets through brute force. It creates a specialized field that temporarily alters the quantum bonds between particles. Susan could see the confusion on the aliens' faces. She tried to simplify. Instead of breaking something apart with an explosion, we simply convince its smallest pieces to let go of each other, for just a moment. Once they do, the object falls apart on its own. A murmur spread through the chamber. This concept was clearly new to many of the gathered species. Ambassador Zixtal's 4 eyes blinked rapidly. But that would require a complete understanding of subquantum mechanics, Frank finished for him. Yes, it does. How long have humans possessed this knowledge? Asked Chairperson Elovir. Susan hesitated before answering. Earth scientists developed the theoretical framework about 50 years ago. The practical application, the Raven system, was completed more recently. This wasn't entirely true. Humans had understood subquantum mechanics for longer than that, but revealing too much might make Earth seem more threatening than they wanted to appear right now. Why did you not share this knowledge with the Council when you first arrived? Asked another Council member, the one covered in golden scales. Would you have listened? Susan asked simply. Or would you have continued to see us as primitive, newcomers not worth your attention? The Council chamber fell silent. The truth of her words was impossible to deny. Grazak's exoskeleton clicked rapidly as he spoke. Your weapons do not destroy matter. They simply convince it to come apart. Exactly. Frank nodded. And the best part is that it requires very little energy compared to conventional weapons. The Defiant could have targeted all 7 Drachnoid ships without needing to recharge. This statement caused another round of murmurs among the observers. The implications were clear. Humanity possessed a weapon that was both more efficient and more effective than anything the Council races had developed in thousands of years of technological advancement. May I ask a question? Susan said, looking up at the Council members. Chairperson Elovir nodded. Of course, Captain. Why did the Council races focus so much on energy-based weapons? Didn't any of your scientists explore alternative approaches? The Council members looked at each other, seemingly unsure how to answer. Finally, Zixtal spoke. Our races developed space travel many thousands of years ago, he explained. In those early days, we faced threats that could be defeated with energy weapons. As time passed, we simply built upon those foundations, making our weapons stronger and more powerful. No one thought to start over with a different approach. Susan nodded. This made sense. It was a common pattern in technological development. Once, a path was chosen. It was difficult to abandon it completely and try something new. The Council extends its formal apology, Elovir said after a moment of silence. Her skin was now pulsing with patterns that Susan recognized as indicating respect. We misjudged humanity based on superficial observations. We now officially invite Earth to join the Galactic Alliance as a full member, with all associated privileges. Susan felt a surge of pride. This was what they had worked for, respect and recognition from the most powerful group in the galaxy. But she kept her expression calm as she replied, "Earth is honored to accept the Council's invitation." As the formal ceremony continued, Susan's communication device buzzed with one last message from Admiral Murphy. "Well done, Captain. Remember, it's not about having the biggest stick. It's about being the only one who knows where the leverage point is." Susan smiled slightly. The Admiral was right. Humans had never tried to match the raw power of alien technology. Instead, they had looked for the clever solution, the unexpected approach, the new way of thinking about old problems, and in doing so, they had earned their place among the stars. Later, as Susan and Frank left the council chamber, they could hear the excited discussions continuing behind them. The galaxy was changing. The species that had ruled for thousands of years now had to consider the new ideas and perspectives that humans would bring. "What happens next?" Frank asked as they walked back toward the Defiant. Susan thought about it for a moment. "We teach and we learn. We share some of our knowledge and we gain some of theirs. We become part of something bigger than ourselves, but we never forget what makes humanity special." "And what's that, Captain?" Susan smiled. "Our ability to look at the same stars as everyone else but see different patterns. Our willingness to question everything, even the things that everyone else takes for granted. And most importantly, our talent for finding simple solutions to complex problems." As they reached the Defiant, Susan looked back at Proxima Station, at the dozens of alien ships now docked alongside it, at the representatives of countless worlds coming together in this one place at the edge of human space. The galaxy was vast and filled with wonders, and humanity had just taken its first real step into that larger community. It had taken a demonstration of power to get the galaxy's attention. But it would be humanity's ideas, their fresh perspective on old questions, that would truly change the stars. The end.